iMagician Live is all about trying to bring new experiences, and I think I'm about to do that. This man, some people in England won't have heard of him. A lot of you magicians will have done. This man is very, very well known in Las Vegas, and he has such a diverse portfolio. You know, he's like king of podcasts, in my opinion, because he seems to be on every single podcast that I ever tune into. He is a magician in his own right, but more importantly, he has a tremendous magical mind, and he has a great way at looking at presentation. I promise you, you're going to get some great insight from this, and you're going to want to know a lot more about my guest. Here he is, Mr. Matt Donnelly. Hi, Matt.
Hi, thank you. That was such a tall order of an introduction. I thought you were talking about somebody else. I was excited. I was excited to hear this interview.
Yeah, no, seriously. I was. You first came to my attention through the Sunday School podcast, which we're going to talk about later on. And then I realized that I believe we met first time on Fool Us.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and I didn't put it together at the time that you were the same person.
Most don't. When you come on as a contestant at Fool Us, first off, you're constantly escorted around in secret around the Penn Teller Theater because Penn Teller can't see you or know that you're on the show until you set foot on the stage. And then so I'm just one of the army of people that kind of jostle you around and find you and ask you a bunch of questions. So I know that I was like one of 6 people to talk to you about your background before you went on stage. So most people don't remember me as an individual guy. I'm just part of this Fool Us army when you're there on the show.
Just if you're joining us at the moment, I said this at the top of the show, but Matt is the head writer on the show Fool Us, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But before Matt was a magician, and before he was surrounded by this world, he was a big name comedian, really. It's fair to say you did a lot. You won a lot of awards. You were on a lot of shows on the Strip, and you involved in the writing of a lot of those shows, I think. And I just wondered if you could kind of give us a little overview of what that was and how you came into this world.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, in New York City, I came up in the improv comedy scene and, Upright Citizens Brigade, People's Improv Theater, Magnet Theater. Amy Poehler was a teacher of mine before she got on SNL. I remember there was a time as a student where she had booked a Tide commercial, and we all went out to the bar to celebrate as a class. From there, I just kind of stayed involved in comedy, and myself and a lot of friends just found different ways to stay in. And improv gives you a background where both you love to play yourself, you also love to play other people, which lends itself to writing. So I started writing sketch comedy and then writing for other voices when I got the chance. I moved out to Las Vegas, and I ended up meeting Penn Jillette's wife, Emily Gillette, and I kind of got into Penn's circle that way right when they started doing a show on the Discovery Channel. And with my comedy background, there wasn't a lot of television shows being made in Las Vegas, so I just begged to intern on the show.
Right.
They let me intern with them, and then Penn knew of my comedy background, so he let me write some jokes for the script. Let me take a pass, and they kept enough of my jokes that they decided to hire me as a comedy writer from that point going forward.
All right, so it's fantastic. And is it true, or is this just an internet rumor, that you became a magician because Penn dared you to?
No, that's very true. That's very true. I was running my mouth off, as an artist, we always live paycheck to paycheck, but it just seemed like I was on like season 4 or whatever. I was doing my 4th season of Fool Us, and I just talked to magician after magician, and they all are making a living in some capacity or another. And it just dawned on me that magicians have different paths to make some kind of income. There's more paths to do that than there is in comedy. Comedy, you can either hit big as a stand-up or you can hit as a writer. But there aren't a lot of like lower tier. You don't do a lot of stand-up at birthday parties. You don't do strolling stand-up at really high-end parties and fundraisers. It's just really difficult. And so mouthing off to Penn, I was like, you know what? I should just learn 4 magic tricks and do what these corporate guys do, And Penn kind of heard me mouthing off, and he goes, oh, you should learn magic. Why don't you just learn a trick and see how hard it is? And I was like kind of sweating because at that point I was co-host of his podcast, so I was used to kind of being challenged by him in the past for other things. And he said, it'll be harder than you think, but you might be better at it than you think.
Listening to you on the podcasts, the thoughts that you have about magic, your thoughts about its theory and its presentation is far more in depth than most magicians than I know.
I mean, I went to a performing arts high school, a special school where you could specialize in acting at an early age, and went to college, to study in university with acting as well. Always with kind of using comedy as my superpower. I started performing comedy every Friday and Saturday night when I was like 15, 16 years old, doing improv shows and stuff at theaters, not like as part of school programs, but out and about at theaters and stuff. And so I spent about 20 years really kind of in that world, performing in every kind of environment possible. So yeah, I think I had a huge advantage. I had a huge advantage of picturing the performance environment with the challenges of magic. And so I was like, Penn told me to learn a trick. Rather than go to Penn first, I work with Johnny Thompson on Fool Us. And that's another thing. In terms of my background in magic, I was very lucky. I was in the room. I'm in the room for every rehearsal with Johnny Thompson, Mike Close, Andrew Golder, Lincoln Hyatt, like the producers of the show who've produced television talent, and the magic wing of Johnny Thompson and Mike Close.
It's really incredible, isn't it, to come into magic and you've got best friends like Johnny Thompson, Penn Teller, Piff the Magic Dragon. What a phenomenal knowledge these people have.
It's stupid. No, it really is. I mean, it's just dumb. I'm so lucky. And I know it because I struggled to break through in comedy, trying to break through as an actor, trying to break through as a stand-up, trying to break through as a writer. I mean, I book stuff. I got little stuff, a lot of little stuff here and there. I have an okay resume, an okay IMDb page or whatever it was. But I know the difference, right? So I know when you're gigging versus when you start to actually hit with something. And to have their input from the very beginning is silly. So, like, if no one should ever ask me, should my career keep it going, how do you get into magic? It's like, you can't do what I did. I can give you no advice. I was just surrounded by an embarrassing amount of first-class help to get me started.
Yeah, it was incredible. In fact, in a moment, we're going to play in the clip of you appearing on Fool Us, because there's a moment when Penn and Teller see you coming onto the show and they look like they're just being wound up. Tommy, let's play that clip.
Hey, I'm Matt Donnelly, and I have no business being a professional magician. I started as an improviser, improv comedy. I moved to Las Vegas, and as luck would have it, became friends with Penn. So I co-host Penn's podcast, and I've been doing that for about 6 years. I got into magic on a dare. I kind of was mouthing off and saying, like, I should just learn a trick. And Penn said, you're right, you should. I think it's hilarious to go on Fool Us and mess with my friends.
Right. What's your name?
Morgan.
Morgan, I knew that. I read your mind, no problem. Right over there, I can read Penn's mind. He's thinking, what the hell's Matt doing up there? I can read Teller's mind. He's thinking, actually, Morgan, Teller's thinking he hates that joke. Exactly.
So what's it like performing for your friends Penn and Teller?
I started magic basically on a dare by Penn. And so put a preview together of my first magic show. And so I can tell you, don't do your first magic show ever in front of Penn and Teller. Teller taught me a rope trick with a knife. I cut my finger open. I bled all over myself, and it did not go well at all. I'm very happy to get back here and at least do something pretty good in front of them.
All right, let's see if your friends Penn and Teller figured it out.
All right.
All right, Penn, Teller, this guy.
What the hell are you doing? Matt Donnelly is my co-host on Penn Sunday School. We do a podcast together every single week. And yet, he has been keeping this from me for months, that he's showing up on this show. Oh, I'm learning magic. I'm working on a few new things, Penn. I hope you get to see him someday. Won't that be fun? What tricks you working on, Matt? Oh, just stuff. So you come here after co-hosting my show for, 7 years? And you've got a trick you're trying to sneak by me? I'll tell you, Matt, it's amazing. It's pretty amazing because you've really done a beautiful performance that absolutely killed. I gotta tell you, it's astonishing in every single way, but you thinking you can fool us, you rat bastard? I'll tell you, it's a great trick, but it didn't add up. And if you think you fooled us, I'm gonna punch you in the face. No, it does not add up. You did not fool us. Isn't that right, Matt?
It's true. Busted. But it was my lifelong dream to perform for you guys. That's not true either.
It was so funny. Did you ever think you were going to fool them? Because I think you had a chance.
Well, that's it. So when when Teller and Penn started walking back to their chairs after I performed, Teller said, "Okay." So before he got out the calculator, he started going over the facts, and Penn just said, "Shut up, Teller. Shut up, Teller. Shut up. We have everything. We know everything." And so I was the only interview that they've ever watched. They just watched me get interviewed by Allison because they're normally talking. And they just watched my interview.
It was a remarkable piece of TV, I mean, when I did that show, I went in with my eyes open because I thought, I'm doing a trick that will no way it will fool them. In a million years, this trick won't fool them. And I knew that from the outset. Maybe there's a 0.5% chance that if they accepted that the technology they didn't understand exactly and they accepted that as a method. But that's just nitpicking, and I didn't want to do that. I had too much respect for them. I mean, do you actually know how I got the iPads to work?
Well, go ahead, break down the code for me.
I've seen people try and do things similar to this.
It has come up, and people have had come up. And even sometimes they've gotten fooled on stuff where they've gone back to the producers in the truck and been like, come on, we can't know how you build a phone charger or something like that, So there have been examples of it. The show is a showcase, and Penn and Teller want it to be a showcase. And, back when, in the era between Copperfield up until Fool Us, David Blaine hits and everything else, but it becomes very widely assumed that camera tricks are always involved in making magic stuff after David Blaine's levitation. Yes. And so it was basically like Penn and Teller brainstormed of like, how can we get magic on television? And that's where they thought of the idea of Fool Us. And it wasn't about this idea that like let's take on all comers like we are gladiators of the magic world. But basically, like by saying, if we're going to sit in these chairs and watch these people on TV and these people are going to perform for us and we're going to try to figure it out, that takes away all of the camera trick elements and everyone at home can just safely assume they're watching some magic being performed live without camera tricks. And
no, it's very true.
So for people like you and I, we were like, great, we can get on television and kick ass. We're probably not going to fool those guys. But at the end of the day, that's like one quick question that someone has. And otherwise, we've made an amazing impression on people outside of that. That keeps us, working.
I will say this in my experience, that it is always the first question that I get asked. But I have found a way of making my answer quite concise and get my spiel in. If I know it's going to fool them anyway, I've got it concise now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the podcast, because that's the first time that you really came to my attention. I wasn't joking when I said on my phone I have like 10 podcasts that I subscribe to, and 4 of them are you. So you're on everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because I feel like we're better friends than we maybe are, because you're always in my house and you're constantly playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's unfortunate on my end that I don't understand how much you're listening to it, but when we do encounter each other, the things you do know, everything you know about me is 100% true. And I get to talk to Penn Jillette, or I get to talk to Piff the Magic Dragon, or my magic podcast with RJ, where I sit down and talk to on my subscriber, my little secret subscriber only magic podcast I'm always trying to think about, I have magicians who listen to the show, and I have people who just followed me over from my comedy podcast before I was a magician, that are just continuing to follow my journey as a magician.
So Matt, what is the qualification for getting to listen to your podcast? I know I'm on it.
$2.
Yeah.
Basically, I wanted to talk because I didn't come to magic as like growing up as a kid doing magic tricks and trying to keep secrets and stuff. I wanted to talk more openly about magic, and not in a way that I wanted to pride myself to give away secrets or being a snob about anything. I just wanted to talk very honestly to a small and special audience about the things I'm struggling with as I grow as a magician.
I'll send you another $2 if you skip over my episode when you get there.
Oh, no way, man. I'm going to have you come on. We did that with Brian Brushwood. Brian Brushwood came on, and we tried to bust some of his performance, and we were wrong. So we had him come back on and tell us what we got wrong on our podcast.
Cool.
So we can do the same for you.
It'd be my pleasure, because I'm just sat around at home, so it'd be nice to have something to do. I've enjoyed doing this. I'm not a broadcast journalist like yourself or Richard Young, but I'm enjoying just talking to people that I find interesting, and you're certainly very, very high on that list.
Well,
so
I appreciate it.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
coming
it.
on the show.
Wait. Before we do, I want to talk to you about. I watched a clip of one of these shows where you did torn and restored newspaper on a talk show. Torn and restored paper on a show, and I was like, I can't tell you how much this has been consuming me watching that clip as a student of magic. I'll tell you why. Because everyone thinks, everyone hears about doing a trick and making it their own. And torn and restored newspaper is a known trick among magicians. And when you go to do it, I literally was like watching. I was like, is he doing torn and restored newspaper for television? Okay. And the way you start the performance, I was fascinated, because it's almost like you didn't want to go through with it. Like you're a little like, okay, and you kind of get it out, and you start talking, and there's this like odd nervousness to it.
Yeah.
And then you perform it in a way that I was so good, and it was so powerful. I've never seen anyone get a reaction like you did off a torn and restored newspaper, and it was all done by making it such like this endeavor to do it. And then your script is a little different, where you make people betray what they're seeing early, and you take the side of the audience instead of you doing a demonstration. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the tension he is building in this room on this trick. And the payoff you got on it was perfect.
Oh, it's very
and
kind
I was
of
like,
you. It's very difficult to do that moment, because
I know,
you have to make it so
but
awkward, and you're trying to hold it as long as you can, and it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And it feels like such a cold scientific demonstration so many times when you watch it. And it was one of the biggest lessons Teller ever taught me about magic, which is he was like, you're never doing a demonstration. This isn't a science demo. Life unfolds. Life surprises. You have to make your tricks feel like they unfold and surprise. And every magician talks about making it their own, or making their thing their own. And in that trick, you really just make it your own by sheer performance skills. And it was awesome. And I couldn't stop thinking about that clip.
It's certainly really, really kind of you, Matt, and certainly coming from you, because you really do know what you're talking about. I would not be doing that trick on Fool Us if I come back on.
That would be like a triple bluff. A triple bluff of like, he had to have done something different.
There must be something we're missing here. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
you're
for having
absolutely
me.
welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge cyber reaction for the one and only Matt Donnelly.